Hey guys, this is Luke with Dad Life Chess. I'm going to jump on the chess.com um, live play here and look for a 10-minute game. It's in the middle of the day. Normally I record these games at night after the kids are in bed. You know, it's part of the Dad Life Chess, right? Is you got to squeeze in times where you can get the games. But I have a little time this afternoon and I wanted to get a game in. I have a trip planned for work later this week and I don't know if I'll get a chance to record again. So I'm going to look for a game here and see what we can get. All right, I am playing black against Gines 8 or something along those lines. I don't know if I'll have a chance to do it this week, but I do want to review a game review from the chess club last night. It was actually a game against Joel, also on the channel here. It was a little bit of a disappointing and painful loss. Both of us had chances. I think he actually had chances before I even did to be winning in the game. But toward the end of the game, especially, I definitely had a shot at being completely winning, and I missed my chances. And I've looked it over just a little bit. I'm not in depth yet, so I want to do that. I want to take some time here to do that, probably after this week. But I just don't know if I'll get to it yet. Maybe after the pain subsides a bit, I will. I will do that. All right, so let me think here. He's threatening this. I'm very aware that I don't play the Scandi the way that I should. And the fact that I know that and still continue to do it probably tells you a little bit about my lack of opening skill. I have a lot of bad habits from playing the Scandi as part of my bullet and blitz repertoire. And it basically, Joel laughs, it basically involves castling queenside and sacking a bishop for 2 pawns at the earliest convenience. But in slow games, that plan doesn't work. You know, castle queenside, sack your bishop for 2 pawns is not always an option. And believe it or not, even when it is an option, it's not always winning. My opponent is anticipating a queenside castle as I'm playing here. So as much as I don't want to, I think I need to consolidate and put aside my bold and blitz plan. All right. Let's get my rook lined up against his queen. There are times where you can take here, and this pawn can be dangerous, but with this many pieces on the board and with nothing else on this side, I don't think that's going to be an issue here. Why can't I take that? Maybe he's just looking to get lines opened up, huh? I think I can just take that. Maybe this is one of those situations where where taking can get dangerous. So I should probably stop for a second. Maybe there's no way this could be better. Takes. I mean, that just looks really ugly. I don't think takes works here. I'm trying to think if this works. Just defend the bishop where he is. If he takes here, then I take back with tempo on the knight. What if he pushes here, though? Then I have 95, among probably other things. But okay, I think I still have that, right? Yeah, move your bishop back. My opponent's playing very fast. Just checking to see if these discoveries are a problem. Like, oh, sorry about that. Thinking they might actually be a problem. No, no, we're fine. All right, well, let's get this piece active. This is fine, right? I didn't calculate the fact that he could take my knight with check here, so I'm actually hesitating now. I think it's fine though. All right, so this is just another pawn. My opponent's playing very quickly, and it kind of has me worried, like I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. I'm pretty sure he should be taking more time with these moves, because that's just another pawn, and I'm threatening already to take here and win another pawn, or at least double his pawns. I guess he could play a move like this, threatening the rook and avoiding the double pawns. What else could we do? You don't really want to step into a pin here. Yeah, I guess you could do this as well. Okay. But now I'm just gonna double up. I mean, I'm up 2 pawns, and the 2 of his pawns are isolated. This one's advanced, so I have to be careful about sacks, like I mentioned earlier. But I don't think there's any immediate threats there. All right. Well, I really want to get in. Really want to get some attack going here. So let's activate this piece. I just am noticing, I mean, 3 pieces over here on the queen side, or at least in striking range of the queen side. Just trying to calculate moves like rook takes h3. I don't think it works yet, but with this bishop able to come, if it were to happen and he were to take back on h3, then the bishop coming here can get really dangerous really quickly. I feel good about the position, but obviously I have to find a way to close. And I'm just always looking at this. This option here takes, but I think worst case scenario, like he tries to march the pawn, and I can just sack the rook back for the pawn. All right, so I'm looking at queen g5. Obviously threatening here and even here. I'm trying to think what his next move would be. Maybe just push. Then I would take, though, because that's mate in a few moves, I think. Or if not mate, at least a strong attack. Take with the bishop. It takes back. Take with the queen. Let's check. King h1. Check. Guess he can block with the knight. Check. Huh. I actually don't see an immediate mate. I might be able to find it if I stop for a second. I'm not even sure that's what he would do, though, so I don't want to take too much time on that. But so other moves might be, no, he can't play here because I can take with either piece. It's pinned. Yeah, I feel like this presents quite a few problems for him. Now I have to decide what I'm going to do if he pushes here. So let's just take some time to calculate. Oh. My opponent just has no fear, apparently. So what happens if I go here? Attacking the queen. Threatening mate. don't see any way to get out of both of those issues. I mean, you could take the rook, but I'm threatening mate. Oh no, you can't even take the rook. I'm defending the rook. You take the bishop. I don't think I see any. I don't think I see any option for this. I don't think I see any way out for him. He can sack his queen for the bishop. Take, this pawn's pinned, so I'm just losing the one piece, not both. I think that's the only move that keeps him in the game at all. Just trying to think through. So again, G4 doesn't work because I just take the queen. And my king's not under attack. Moves like this to try to attack my queen don't work. I don't see any other way out for him. I wonder if this move, bishop f3, I wonder if that was the strongest move regardless of what he did with his queen. It might have been the strongest move either way. I don't understand what my opponent is doing. I don't know why he's just giving up pieces. Okay. So maybe just missed a couple things there toward the end. I think that move, that's the only time my opponent stopped in the game at all was when I played bishop f3. And I think it's probably a good example of where you should take time earlier to avoid that situation instead of waiting until you're already lost to look at those options. So I want to take a look at the analysis here. I know there wasn't a long game, and probably, yeah, I should look at the opening. Like I said, I don't play the opening for the Scandi the way that I'm supposed to. I know that I don't play the best lines. I have a lot of bad habits from playing it in bold and blitz, so I do want to look at that and just try to cement in my mind if I majorly misplayed it and lost some kind of advantage or was losing. So I want to look at that, and then I'll look at that tactic and see if my opponent missed anything. I feel like, I guess just to go over the game really quick before I look at the actual analysis here. I'm not familiar with this. Where was it? Yeah, that's an interesting move. So normally when they play the bishop out to g5, it's very, I don't think I've ever seen where they move it back to e3 afterward. And there's a few reasons for that. Beyond just the tempo, I just don't know that. I don't see the purpose of that. There's no immediate purpose for it. So normally in the opening, you don't want to just waste moves. And you don't want to lose moves at all. But if you're going to have to lose a tempo with a move, you want to do it for a reason. And I don't see a reason for it. I think queen d2 was aimed at, putting his bishop here again, which again would be odd because you're losing another tempo. And it's not like my bishop is trapped. I can still move my queen, excuse me. It's not like my queen is trapped, so I can still find a place for it. So I don't even know that would be a big deal. But at this point, I mentioned my bad habits. This is where I would generally, without a4 especially, my tendency before would be to castle queenside, throw some pawns up on the king side of the board and get an attack and see if we can get some mating attack going. But I know many times it did not work. And bold and blitz is very deceptive because oftentimes you'll feel good about wins that you don't deserve because you won them on time or because your opponent blundered in a position they would never blunder in if they were playing a longer game. So I have good memories about certain openings and certain lines when they're definitely not good lines. I just happen to get a few good wins off of them in bold and blitz. So yeah, so castle and kingside here I think was probably better. This pawn move, again, like I mentioned, there are situations, I know I've had games where sacking here and then this pawn running can be an issue. Not this early in the game probably, but later on, especially I was looking for moments where that would happen. I think that was a pawn my opponent maybe meant to give up to open up lines for what I was describing, this sack on b6. Yeah, maybe that was intentional. I don't know. We'll have to see if there's something there. And then I looked at a couple of options here. I don't like the idea of backing up the bishop. It just makes for an ugly pawn structure for no reason. I thought about bringing the bishop back, but I actually kind of liked the idea that my bishop was pinning the queen, pinning the knight to the queen. So I ended up deciding on this move, and I think at this point I have the pawn. This move coming. The bishop was not just a strong piece in general, but it was also part of this idea of sacking. So I was actually happy here in a moment. And this, I actually did not see this. So before I played this move, I was thinking, would it be a problem if he took here and then was on my queen? And I've miscalculated these. Just 2 weeks ago, I miscalculated in a game against Joel at the chess club and went down a whole piece in like the opening. So I've made these mistakes before, but this takes. So we have the two pieces for two pieces, and both of our pieces are able to get out if we need to. So yeah, I don't think I missed anything there. But then I played knight f6, and I did not realize that with that move, he can forget the queen. He can take here with check. So I think if I take here, I saw it just really quickly in the game, and I didn't calculate beforehand, but I think if I try to take here now, he can take a second piece with check. I have to take back, ruin my pawn structure, and then only then does he take back here. And so I think that would be losing, definitely. And so just at the last second, as I was looking at it, I ended up taking with the knight. We have an exchange with the bishops. And then another pawn. So maybe the first one was intentional, giving up the pawn here, his b pawn, but I don't see any reason for giving up his d pawn. This was just, not only is it a pawn, but he loses his other bishop, which would have been a strong piece in the end game, especially where it could have maybe come down here and kept this pawn for an end game and helped to usher in the queen. So not only did he lose the bishop, but now I have the file looking to double almost immediately with, and again, like I mentioned in the game, immediate threats of taking and winning another pawn and ruining a pawn structure over here. So I don't think that was probably intentional. That was probably just a blunder from him. I got my queen. At this point in the game, I felt really good. I mean, obviously I have complete control of the d file. His knight, I guess, maybe he's angling for here. At least in that position. I mean, he is subject at some point to be kicked out of there. It's not like it's an outpost, but at least here he's defending against some issues with his kingside pawns. I don't know what he was thinking with that piece, but at this point I felt really good about the position. I think I was clearly up to 2 pawns with not just the 2 pawns, even if he had a b pawn, say back here. I think even just the attack here is strong. His rooks are completely out of play in terms of helping his king. And then I think at this point, I'm just going to look at this move really quickly again and see. I looked at the game quite a bit. I didn't see anything. I don't think there's anything he can do here. I think he has to give the queen up. There's no... I mean, you have moves that can block again, but because I'm threatening his queen and mate, there's no way. If his queen didn't move here, I would say this is probably a huge blunder for him. This queen e4 move, Because as it stands, if he, let's say he goes, somewhere else, he wouldn't go, sorry, not there. Let's say he goes, forget the queen. Let's say he just moves, I don't know, just for the sake of example, let's say he makes a rook move, maybe a rook lift. I was looking at, immediately I can get the pawn. I'm wondering if maybe this move is also strong there, even if he doesn't have the queen on e4. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this move probably works just fine. There's no immediate threat. I take, king takes, this piece is pinned, but still defended by the pawn on f2, so I can't win the piece or anything. So probably my best bet here would have just been to take the pawn. It's interesting. I'll look at that position and see if I missed anything tactically, but I think my opponent probably made the best move here. Maybe here he's thinking that I would, I don't think he realized that my queen was on that square, but obviously if I take here, he takes back, and he's threatening mate, then I might lose this piece. So that might be what he was thinking there, but I didn't even have to take the first time. I was able to take another pawn. I'm sure this move was aimed at me taking, and then if I take, then he wins, obviously on the back rank. So he's just playing for tricks, I think, at this point. That's just another piece, and then my opponent resigned. So yeah, let's look at the analysis here and see see what we can learn from the game. Let me make sure everything's showing up here correctly. Okay, good. So I had a 91% accuracy. My opponent had 29%. Looks like I had 2 mistakes and 1 inaccuracy. And my opponent had 4 mistakes and 2 inaccuracies. So no blunders for each of us, but that's still a pretty low percentage for my opponent, probably just because of some suboptimal moves at key points in the game. All right, well, let's go through the game here. See if I can fix some of my bad Scandi habits from Bold and Blitz. This is not unusual. I mean, they're already saying, plus, 0.8 for white. I told Joel this before, that the engines have some Scandi hate, some latent Scandi hate. They don't like the Scandinavian. They almost always consider it to be, losing for black more than usual out of the opening, more than white already is losing, or than black already is usually behind. I remember John Bartholomew, I think one of his early videos I watched, he said that when Lichess first started, they actually they marked so first move for white e4, and then the Scandi responds d5, and they had that marked as I think a mistake or an inaccuracy or something, and he basically pushed back and said, hey, this is a legitimate opening, like people play this at top levels and it's not completely losing, and it's not been refuted or anything. So he had them fix that, but I think early on it was marked actually as a mistake or inaccuracy. Yeah, already here though we're roughly even. So, and just so I guess if you don't play the Scandinavian, just so you know, this is not the most aggressive way for white to play. Obviously, I mean, you can see none of his pieces until a4. None of his pieces were even past the 3rd rank. So normally they're playing a lot more aggressively with white, and that's how you can really put pressure on black. The way my opponent played today was not an aggressive response. So yeah. Castle's kingside was the best move here. I avoided my impulse to castle queenside and do my usual attack there. Okay, they're saying b5 instead of b6. No, I'm sorry. Either one is fine, but b6 is the best. And then b4 is a mistake. Yeah, I didn't see a benefit to this. I couldn't see. Obviously having the open file for the rook might be a benefit, but all right. Well, there's our first mistake of the game for me. c5 was a mistake. Instead, they're saying I should play bishop d6. Yeah, I mentioned this in the analysis as well. I think probably even in the original game. That was my first instinct, just to kind of get this piece back to where it came from. I won the pawn, get back to freedom. Maybe the issue, let's see. Let me see what the issue is here. What if, so in the game I played c5, is the issue just bishop? No, knight b5. Ah, of course. Wow, that's interesting. So take the queen. Queen. Take the bishop. And then that knight gets out because it's not under attack. And I guess they're saying long term it's going to be difficult to defend this pawn with this pawn so close to promotion. Is that the idea? Let me see. My knight d5. They're saying don't take. They're saying give up the pawn. Because I'm threatening this piece, obviously. Don't want to take the pawn yet. I have to defend. And there's going to be threats here again after the next move. So I think I'm going to have to deal with that. King f2. Actually defend the pawn now. Knight b4. Okay, so white's not completely winning or anything here, but that's the line that I didn't really see. I didn't see that the trades would benefit black there. Instead of playing knight b5, my opponent backed up his queen, which I didn't understand either. I didn't really understand because it still is in the pin. I guess there's a cleaner way to do what I did in the game. There's the computer saying just take the knight, and then I could fork both pieces next and still win the bishop. So kind of tackled the same idea but a little slower. Why is that an inaccuracy? Sorry, let me just look at this. Oh, because of what happened in the game. A version of what happened in the game. Apparently knight takes here is a problem. Why is that? Okay, it's not losing, just not as good as I could have gotten in the game. Yeah, I mentioned in the game here that I was kind of poised to play this move, and that would have been a blunder because of what I mentioned in the analysis, that takes here with check, and then I have to take back, and then he takes back the bishop, and yeah, +4. That would have been a bad deal for sure, but I took back with the knight. Takes, and then c3 is another mistake. Oh, of course, I didn't even see this in the game. Not only is that a pawn, he actually gave up the fork on c2. Could have won the exchange as well. So this will be actually still showing as a good move. It's not even showing as a mistake or an accuracy. The file is I guess valuable enough where it didn't matter that much. Okay, good. Queen a4. I wonder if that was the best move there. I struggle in these points in the game when I feel like I have an advantage and some pressure, but there's not a clear tactic that I'm going for. It's just kind of a general plan at this point. I often struggle with moves, and I freeze, and like I don't know what to do or where to play. And I was kind of feeling that here. I thought about finding a way to go after this pawn, since I think this pawn is weak. But I just felt like there was an attack here that was available if I just played the right moves. And so it looks like Queen f4 was fine. It's one of the moves the computer recommends. They're all pretty close. But the best move is h6. h6 apparently is keeps that -5.5 advantage. And what I played in the game ends up being not as good of an advantage. So that's interesting to me. Rook c1 was best, defend that pawn. Queen g5. was good. Still, they're still mentioning h6, but queen g5. And then here's the inaccuracy. Oh, it's only an inaccuracy. That's interesting. I would have seemed like a blunder if you lose your queen. So maybe we're missing something here. No. So I guess it's already lost. Let me go back here. So yeah, that was the best move, was to take with the queen. And yeah, and everything else here, the rest of the game is pretty standard. But I want to go back to this position and see, let's say my opponent makes, as I mentioned, just a, I don't know, not a waiting move, but just a, let's even look at like this. Or let's take the best move instead of me guessing. What's the best move for my opponent? Knight g3. Okay, I mentioned this earlier, blocking some of the threats. So knight g3. What is the deal with this h6 move that keeps popping up? All right, never mind. Bishop g6. Rook d1. c4. Inviting him to take and give me a passed pawn. Yeah, like this would be a great example of a position up 2 pawns with his pawns being, isolated, that I would know in a game that I'm better, but I wouldn't necessarily know. I wouldn't always be able to know what the best plan of attack was. So this is interesting for me just to see and play through. Rook db1. Maybe renewing threats here of sacking at some point in the game. Not yet, obviously, but f6. Going after this pawn. Rook c1. He's forced to go back to defend it. h5. Yeah, I just want to get rid of this knight. So I'm guessing he has to play. Let's see, knight. He can't push the pawn, which is what you'd want to play because I can just take. So he's going to play knight e4. f4, and all those same attacks are coming that were earlier. Only this pawn is now involved to keep his knight out of here, so I can definitely see the pressure on this. I don't know that I would have found all those moves. Probably one of the areas I need to grow the most and improve in chess is when I feel like I have an advantage, or even if not, it's not a major advantage, maybe just a pawn or two, and I'm in a position where there's no immediate tactics. Because those are easy after the game to look at. You look after the game and you're like, oh, I missed that tactic. There was a clear win of material, or there was a clear move that gave me an attack that won a piece or an exchange or something. Those are usually easier for me to see after the game, but often where I struggle is when I don't know what the best plan of attack is. Because it's just more of a general plan. I struggle sometimes to find moves, especially in time pressure. In time pressure, often it's really hard for me to find that. So, probably what I should do following this game is going back to this position here. Let me find it here really quick. Yeah, right here. So probably this is a great example of the kind of position that I should look at for myself. And since the computer doesn't have any clear winner, I mean, all 3 moves are roughly equal, the next 3 moves. This would be, I probably should start saving positions for my games that involve these kind of positions. And it's like my own version of studies where I look at them and I basically, say, hey, what's the best plan here? Or what are the plans that are available here? Best case scenario, what options are you looking at? What moves would my opponent want to make? Yeah, these are really helpful for me because I'm not looking at it like a tactic where there's only one option. I'm looking at it like a study where there's multiple plans that are available and I have to pick one and I have to be aware of where the threats are. And that would be a really helpful takeaway. I think that's probably the main takeaway for me from this game is starting to pay attention to these type of positions in games and try to develop some kind of review system where I can just screenshot this, look at it later, and think through the positions because I do struggle at times to convert on those advantages sometimes. So all in all, I'm pretty pleased with the game. I feel like I played it pretty well, took advantage of some of my opponent's mistakes, and and had a nice tactic. This find at the end was nice. Probably not hard for some people to find, but for me, it's an only move here that keeps that -8 advantage. The other ones drop down to a -3. So yeah, that was a fun tactic to find in the game. Nice to get the win. Push myself over 1800 again, and we'll be back next time with another training game, maybe even a game review if I get a chance to go over that game with Joel. Once my wounds have healed and I'm over the loss, I'll share that with the channel and go through that and see what I can learn from the loss. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.